I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. Alongside me is KDot. As always, appreciate you guys for listening to today's episode, which is a preview against the San Francisco 49ers. We don't know how long or short that's going to be. But if you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot,
share this shit.
Share this shit, please. But we got to begin with the big news, if you will. In a lost season, the Washington Commanders announced that Jacoby Brissett is going to start in place of Sam Howell at quarterback this week against the San Francisco 49ers. And KDot, I've seen a variety of reactions to it. Some are like, oh, makes a lot of sense. Others are, this is an absolute outrage. I cannot believe Rivera, Bieniemy, and all of them are doing this. Like, it's all about the draft. What are they thinking? KDot, what was your reaction to it?
So we talked last episode about what it is that we wanted to see as far as who was going to start the last two games, at least a little bit, right?
Yes.
Now, I said that I'd love to start Jacoby this week, but I would move on to going back to Sam Howell for the last week of the season. So my initial thought when I heard the initial breaking news, Jacoby Brissett named starter for the final 2 weeks of the Washington Commanders season is the way that it was told to me. And I got initially extremely fucking angry.
And I was surprised by that because I actually heard what was said. Go ahead.
Right. So
sounds like you know now. Yeah.
Right. So like it's cleared up. Jacoby's a starter this week. We'll see what happens. But the idea, I think what you end up seeing, or the reason I was upset, and maybe this is why the fan base is upset, is that going to Sam Howell right now, this late into a season, with no playoff aspirations, is an indictment of the failure of this fucking coaching staff and this team, and maybe this organization as a whole, and the way they handled developing Sam Howell, the way that they handled the quarterback position, the way that they handled where we were from a talent perspective. I think people are looking back at this season saying, well, fuck, if you weren't doing what you did with Sam Howell in the sense of giving him the entire Eric Bieniemy playbook as basically a rookie, which everyone knows is a complicated fucking offense, and then running an 80-20 pass to run ratio to start off the fucking season, and then you allow him to get his brains bashed the fuck in, being on a record-breaking, on pace to be record-breaking quarterback sacks. You did nothing to help slow roll the development of this guy, and now when everything's done, okay, there's a guy that shows a little more glint of hope. Now we're gonna start him. Where if you're looking at this from a standpoint of like what makes sense, maybe Jacoby's your day one starter. Maybe you're slow rolling Sam Howell into this, or maybe you're just treating Sam Howell with some modicum of a hint of an idea on how to develop a fucking quarterback and not throwing him in there with the fucking Sharks. Like, it just feels stupid. But when you think about it long enough, you're like, all right, if you look at Sam Howell and you look at this last game, a quarterback rating of 1.7, you see he looks lost in the sauce out there to a point where he might get hurt even more. Yep. Then you're like, I get it. I understand. I'm not that angry about it. I understand, especially Jacoby starting this week. I think Sam needs to take a breather. And it just makes sense. Like, it makes sense to prevent Sam Howell from hurting himself. And we've seen this work for other quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins. When Kirk Cousins was first getting his starts here in Washington, they benched him, I think, twice because he was throwing too many fucking picks. Remember, Kirk Cousins was the dude that it used to just snowball. Like, it was, he threw one pick and it would turn into fucking 7 before you fucking knew it, right? And they're like, sit down.
Right. Yeah. And so I want to say that, honestly, the way I felt about it, And I heard what was said. So they asked, first off, Jacoby Brissett is named the starter this week. And that needs to be made very, very clear. Because I think a lot of people heard final 2 weeks, lost their mind. Even heard just this week, lost their mind. They're like, you roll with Sam all the way till the end. I disagree with the idea of rolling with Sam all the way until the end. Now, KDot and I were chatting last week. If you tuned into the After the Pod last week, and we were talking about what they should do. And KDot, you won me over with the idea of Jacoby this week and Sam next week after he gets a bit of a breather, gets to hit the reset button, gets an opportunity to play against Dallas. Now, Sam has been awful the last month. The last good game he had was against Seattle. He had that throw to De'Ami Brown. We were like 3 touchdowns, no picks. Hey, we're feeling good. Since then, against the New York Giants, 256 yards, a touchdown, 3 picks. Then against Dallas, 300 yards in that Thanksgiving game. Touchdown, that interception, Deron Bland sets the record for pick sixes in a season. Then we play Miami, 127 yards passing. 1 interception, no touchdowns. Then LA Rams, 102 yards, 1 touchdown pick. And then last week on 22 attempts, 56 yards, 2 picks. It's getting worse, guys. So if you are actually interested in Sam Howell being part of the future, you need to recognize, and we said it last week, that he is regressing and he needs a break. So no matter how you look at it, give the kid a break because he's starting to, overexert himself. He's starting to just force things. So give him a breather. So I completely agree with the decision to do it. Now, there's draft position that people are interested in. So some of them are saying, Sam Howell be the starter, but very secretly are like, he is playing so badly, we are going to finish with the top 3 pick. That part exists, and you need to admit that to yourself if you are one of those people. And then they're the other group that are just like, hey, he just needs to play through this, and I genuinely believe in him. I think that's dumb. I think we've seen plenty that's not the case. And Jacoby's earned the opportunity to start. That's the draft position aspect. Jacoby getting the opportunity to start. This is for Eric Bieniemy. And this is where you guys need to understand the difference between what you as a fan want and what the coaching staff wants. Coaching staff is invested in winning now. They're invested in winning every game possible. You saw the comeback against the Jets. That should prove it. Ended up losing, but they were trying to win that game. They are trying to win this game and show that the offense works. Eric Bieniemy is particularly interested in this because he wants a future as an NFL head coach, or at this point, continuing to be an offensive coordinator. So he is very interested in the guy that's making his offense look good. That's Jacoby Brissett. Get out your reaction to that.
It goes back to kind of what I said in the afterthought. Is what I find hilarious is you saying this coaching staff wants to win now.
I know.
They have not done anything this season to show me. They give 2 shits about winning.
Well, because
now.
we both acknowledge this coaching staff is terrible.
But that's the thing, is like anything that you would think this, and I think this is why it's such a hard pill to swallow in the sense of Jacoby Brissett gives you the best chance to win now, is that there is a case to be made when you saw throughout the course of the season, were you developing Sam Howell long-term, or are you trying to give the team the best possible position to win? The best possible position to win, in my opinion, probably was from day one Jacoby Brissett. In the sense of you have a veteran with an extremely complicated offense, who a veteran who's, look, everyone knows pretty much the ceiling on Jacoby Brissett, right? Yes. But what you do know is that if you have playmakers, which is what we have, and you've got a fairly complicated offense, which we have, the dude that's going to come in here and take the less amount of time to get in rhythm with the team is going to be him, right? Then you also look at other things. You don't trade Chase Young and Montez Sweat if you're trying to win now. Right? Like there's an angle of
that's not the coaching staff. Remember that was very much that's ownership. Ron did say that he, and the Athletic article, the Montez Sweat thing, they actually didn't really want to do. They just got a great return on it. So I think ownership pulled on that one. Chase Young, this coaching staff did want to trade, in my opinion, based on, yeah.
Right. But so like the idea of like who was in that trade deadline, who are they trying to get rid of? And then who is it? And then look, did any of it work? No. So like, even if there's in the sense of like, all right, well, Chase Young might have been the distraction in the locker room that we needed to get. I haven't seen increased production from anything that's happening on the fucking defense, right? Nothing. Even if you're looking at like, all right, they get rid of Jack Del Rio because we need a bump on the defense. Usually you get rid of a defensive coordinator, you at least maybe see a week or two of like a bump on defense, even from like an energy standpoint. What do we see? None of that shit, right? So like there's nothing that I've seen, even this Jets game. You're coming back. We see it happen all across the league. All these teams that listen to at least a little bit of analytics. You start going for 2. They lost by 2 points. All those touchdowns that we scored there at the end of the game, they didn't think they didn't think at all about going for 2 to put themselves in position to actually win the fucking game. So it's like, if I'm Josh Harrison or anybody, I'm looking at these guys like, look, I don't really give a fuck what they do. Because even if
It's
they
just
try
pure
their
incompetence.
hardest, right? Even if they try their hardest, we're still going to probably get a top 3 pick.
Right,
It's
right.
great.
All the point I'm making is that the offense the last couple of weeks, to your point, KDot, it has, you said night and day when we were texting. It does look different with Jacoby in. Right. And so there is an idea that they would be able to score more or have more scoring potential with Jacoby running the offense, right?
It's a 2-pronged thing though, right? So like the me getting angry as far as what the coaching staff has done with Sam Howell with the run to pass ratio, that has gotten better. It took them too long to get there. And then when they're finally there, Sam Howell's a broken man. So like the positive that you would get if you were doing this earlier in the season and Sam Howell could have built more confidence throughout the season, we're not here. We're not here. We're in a position where Sam Howell's looking better, not worse, right? And maybe we're in a position where I still don't think we're vying for playoffs or anything, because once again, I just think so like the idea of even me revisionist historying this, but trying to go back, I have no faith in, because I just don't think that they're capable of making these decisions to make this happen at all. Like in a vacuum or not, they're just not able to do it. Like they can't get out of their own fucking way under any circumstance. Like it just sucks. It fucking sucks. This year feels like a waste of fucking time.
We're on a 6-game losing streak. Of course it is. We acknowledge that.
But even the grand scheme of things, right? Like what do we keep going back to was like, this season is a bridge season to get us to next season. And if we could answer one question is Sam Howell maybe the guy or not? And over the course of this season, we've learned maybe less about whether or not Sam Howell's the guy or not. We might have been more confident about
what this season turned into was learning that the coaching staff is completely incompetent, we can't even evaluate players. We've talked about that too. Can't even evaluate them. So it became a lost season in that regard. I just want to boil it down to that. 100%. That's what we learned, unfortunately, is that this coaching staff is past it.
And that's fucking aggravating. That's so aggravating.
Of course it is.
This feels like, if you're Terry McLaurin, if you're you hear Jonathan Allen talk about it a month ago when he was on the when he was doing these Junkies Weekly thing, and it made news around this. It was like, oh, does Jonathan Allen want to be here? I can understand it. He doesn't want to be here for another fucking rebuild when he wasn't sold that was going to be the case.
And you hear Montez Sweat in Chicago go, hey, we were just, if I'm being honest about what the locker room was like over there, we were just sort of packing our things up waiting for next season. Like the mentality is totally different, and it's not one that is unfortunately professional.
I think the players saw what we're seeing now way earlier than we're seeing it now. So like the players have come to terms with, this is just what it's going to be.
This is just what it's going to be. But you know, Jacoby has been named the starter, and I'm not going to get into who should have been the day. I think it was fine to name Sam the day one starter. It's a complicated issue there, but that's all revisionist in any case. Let's talk about the offense today. So Jacoby Brissett is now leading this Commanders offense against the 49ers defense. The 49ers just came off a brutal home loss by 2 touchdowns to the Baltimore Ravens, just the team up north. And they are obviously going to be wanting a big statement when they are capable of doing it. They are now playing us. What is the expectation, KDot, for this offense led by Jacoby Brissett, where it has looked better in the past couple of weeks when he's been the QB? What are the expectations against this 49ers defense?
Darn it. So like the idea of like Jacoby coming in the last 2 games and actually showing out to a certain degree. Okay, cool. Like the Jets defense is known as being a pretty good defense, right? But we just saw last night Cleveland fucking routed these assholes. Like the first half, Joe Flacco came in looking like 23-year-old
Joe Flacco.
MVP candidate Joe Flacco is looking like the motherfucker. Did you see the scramble he had?
Yes.
That motherfucker looked like he was 15
He's
years
having
younger.
fun. He's having fun. That's the power of having a good time.
Nuts, right? So like, so you're talking about a 49ers defense that is better than the Jets. The only hiccup that they've had was that Baltimore game. And if you look at the Baltimore game, it was a lot of you got to give Baltimore's defense credit. Look, we'll talk about it. The defensive coordinator in Baltimore is who I want as our head coach.
We will talk about it.
And I want to poach a lot of things for Baltimore, but the idea that it snowballed so quickly for San Francisco, so early in the game, it was just bad luck. Then Baltimore's defense is good, and then bad luck, but Baltimore's defense is good, and it just went off the rails immediately. There was some of the Brock Purdy pick. It was just like, Jesus Christ, the gods are not in your favor today. It was just, it looked shit. So if you look at the San Francisco's defense, like, they're the best unit we've come up across this entire season. The idea that this coaching staff with even more runway or leeway to make things happen will do better, no, I don't see it. But it could, because, like, look, if they have the run to pass ratio in the right direction as they've been doing, right? And Jacoby Brissett knows what he's doing as far as getting the ball into the hands of the playmakers. I just don't know. I don't like the idea of expectations. It could be good, but it could go disastrously. I think anybody could. I think if you were to skew in one direction, you'd say more disastrously than good, just because of the talent.
No, actually, I wouldn't. I would say that this is going to. Yeah. So I'm actually hopeful we can score 17 points this week for the first time in quite a while, because I do think that when we look back at the CJ Mosley comments, the linebacker for the Jets, and a few others on the Jets, I can't remember everybody that spoke, but they did talk about Jacoby taking what the defense gives to him. And I think veteran QB play, and specific to Jacoby, being a serviceable QB in the NFL, I think he's going to do that. And I think he's going to take the easier options at times. So I do think we'll be able to move the ball a bit more than people maybe are willing to admit right now, just because it is a lost season. And I think a lot of fans are interested in the draft position rather than actually winning this game or being close to winning this game. I do expect the offense to get a little bit of a spark. I don't know if that leads to a win. In fact, I do know it won't, and we'll get to that in the predictions, but I do expect the offense to look a little more lively, and maybe the game is a bit more entertaining to watch, KDot, with Jacoby playing. I
think it's possible. If you look at San Francisco over the course of the last how many weeks, right? So, like, if you look at the talent that they've faced, we know what happened in the Baltimore game.
Yep.
The Cardinals put up 29. Now, that was some garbage time shit, but it was, but they put up 29. The Seahawks put up 16. The Eagles only put up 19. The Seahawks again, only 13. Tampa Bay 14. Jacksonville 3. I guess we're closer to Arizona than any other team, so maybe 17 happens in garbage time because we're down by so good.
Well, it's got to be said. It's got to be said that Arizona ran the ball well. Baltimore, #1 rushing offense in the NFL. So the way to beat this San Francisco defense, and maybe we should have mentioned this at the very beginning, but it is running. A lot of times whenever we do these previews, it's like it is such a passing league that you can run on teams. And so if you're going to do it, like, that is why, to me, Baltimore is having so much success, for example, because in a league where everybody else is pass, they have balance. They're willing to run more than the average team. San Francisco actually falls in that category as well. They run more than people think as well. So you need to be able to. Brian Robinson limited in practice the past couple days here. So he's at least on track. Yeah. Chris Rodriguez on IR, unfortunately, after a really nice game, 10 carries, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Jared Patterson maybe back on the active roster. We will see if that ends up being the case. But this is an opportunity to run, an opportunity to have balance against a team that showed, a defense rather, that if you're willing to be balanced, you can have success.
I will relent. Yes, there is, with Jacoby Brissett playing the way he has coming in, if they keep the pass to run ratio similar to what they have been, hopefully maybe skewed a little even more after listening to this pod, Eric Bieniemy, hopefully you're listening. Yes, Washington could theoretically put up 20 points.
In theory. Why don't we go ahead and flip the script? Let's talk about this Commanders defense. I really don't want to. Against the San Francisco 49ers offense that is still led by Brock Purdy, still an MVP candidate, but probably a bit out of reach at this point. Although if there was ever a game to get huge numbers and come right back in that conversation, this is the one. KDot, some good news. Christian McCaffrey did not practice yesterday. It was vet rest. He's going to play. And so why don't we go ahead and 30 points seems like a guarantee, KDot, because we even gave up 30 to the Jets with Trevor Siemian. What more fun question? What is the 49ers ceiling for points against this defense?
Ceiling?
Okay, so we're looking at a Broncos Dolphins. You think
You
it's
take
just
that
70?
Broncos defense over our defense? Like, come on, bro.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Let's preview this. Go ahead.
We've lost 6 in a row. The opposing team has averaged at least 28 points in these 6 games. We we're last in league in points allowed. This is the 3rd highest scoring offense. We've seen what happens when you have offenses that are around there. Remember the Miami game? This 49ers defense is coming off a game in which hold on. We gave up 95 yards to Breece Young, who looked like
Breece Hall.
fucking Breece Hall. Sorry, Breece Young. What the fuck?
You're thinking about QBs, and by the way, after the pod, we're going to talk about
right.
who we want at pick 3 overall, assuming that holds.
We gave him 95 yards to Breece Hall, who I remember before the game, when we were doing the preview, I was like, well, yeah, they got running backs. And then you said, well, they haven't done it. And then we looked through the stats, and it's like Breece Hall hadn't done a goddamn thing since week 4. So, like,
Been a while.
Breece Hall looked like Christian McCaffrey last week against us.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about Jesus Christ. A San Francisco team that even when they were playing the Ravens last week and things did not go well for them, Ayuk and Kittle both had over 100 yards receiving. We're dead. Like we're fucking toast, bro.
That's why I wanted to start with the Commander's offense. I was like, hey,
Yeah,
cool. What can we do? That's fun. Right. And this is why we lose the game. Please go ahead. Right.
Yeah, this is where these are 2 different classes of teams. These are 2 units that don't even deserve to be considered to be in the same league in the way that they played. This is not an indictment on the talent I think this defense has in Washington. This is an indictment on where I think the coaching staff has been and what the results have been this season. Mm-hmm. The 49ers should be extremely angry coming off that fucking 49ers, that Ravens game. You have a Kyle Shanahan who loves the fucking plan and plot. You have a Kyle Shanahan who has no love lost when it comes to Washington, even with the new ownership. This should be the routing of all fucking routings.
All right.
And I'm very happy to say that in one of my fantasy leagues, I have Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey all starting. And if I lose this championship, Washington just let me down again.
The only way you lose the championship, actually, so you're really rooting for Jacoby Brissett this week, just to keep it close enough that those guys stay in the game.
Yep.
That's what you're rooting for. And so on that note, that this should be a route of all routes. The line is 13. Let's move over to the predictions. The line is the 49ers are favored by 13 on the road. You have to understand how bad you have to be as a team to be just about 2 touchdown underdogs at home. Over under is 49.5 KDot. So, as always, I need a score, I need a winner, I need a player of the game.
So we don't do really parlays anymore, but I was doing another podcast and I bet $50 on the 49ers covering the 12.5 for the one. So
that's not even a parlay.
That's where I'm at.
Just $50 on the spread.
Like, fuck it. Let's just go. I was like, fuck this. Click the shit. Hopefully I'm saying about $50. Like maybe that's it. Maybe they'll surprise me in some sort of way, and I'll be happy about the fucking talent and some shit. 42-13.
One
San
of those.
Francisco.
Okay.
Player of the game, Christian McCaffrey.
Player of the game, Christian McCaffrey. I also have player of the game, Christian McCaffrey. 49ers, 49ers. And yeah, I didn't even mean that. And then the Commanders, I think we hit 17. I do think we hit 17. 49-17. Does Chase Young get a sack?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say no. I say he does not get a sack. I'm also not that interested in that storyline, KDot. I don't know about you. You are?
I'm interested in it because there's a part of me that is so. We keep having the prefaces to say how much we love Ron Rivera as a human being, this, that, blah, blah.
No, this means a lot to him.
There is no part of me that doesn't love the idea of Trent Williams and Chase Young taking it to us.
That's where we're at as a fan base.
I just think I think that we are the wrong actors, and we deserve to be punished. I think it's karma. I just think it's one of those cosmic things that should happen if I think justice exists in this world. Like they should have outstanding games against us. I think that this season is, look, last season was, this is the last season we got the Dan Snyder thing, but there are still Dan Snyder tendrils over everything. And I need them to be removed. And I think part of this is being exercised at the altar of fucking Chase Young and Trent Williams to like say, yeah, fuck that era. Fuck you guys. You deserve this shit. Now let's go on to greener pastures.
The idea of the altar of Chase Young, I feel like there's something there. Why don't we go ahead to the comment mailbag as we always do, and we appreciate you guys for commenting. We got quite a few. I believe we have five comments this week, all from different people. Appreciate it. Starting with Earl Bruce. Shout out, Earl. Coaching staff is incompetent. That is why they will be fired. We are on the same page, my friend. Can Sam Howell be saved? Earl asks. KDot, your answer.
Jury's out. That's partially why I so badly wanted to start against in that Cowboys game. Now, the only thing that happens is, like, let's say Jacoby Brissett goes out there this week and throws 5 touchdowns against the 49ers. I don't see it happening, but let's say it happens.
He starts.
He has to start because Ron Rivera can't walk into that locker room without dudes wanting to fucking crucify him. If that's going to be, if we're seeing that. And to me, I don't know what that does to Sam Howell. I think there is a chance that Howell's already broken beyond repair. I think that that's a very distinct possibility.
I disagree. Okay,
I'm not saying that I think that's the case. I'm saying that that is a possibility.
Sure, it's a very, very slim possibility. I'm going to go ahead and say Sam Howell can absolutely be saved. I think benching him for the time being, I'm, again, totally on board with. When you show signs of regression, like he's shown in the last month, that is somebody that is trying too hard to make something happen. And that is also a sign that teammates are just not bought in right now. A break is required. Can he come out of this stronger? I believe so. So I believe he can be saved. Will he? Now, that's the very interesting question. I don't know, but I think he's most certainly can. I think he has a lot of the tools necessary to be a good NFL QB.
I think we put ourselves in a corner where this is the only responsible decision. I just don't know how to end up.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. Then we go over to the Hawk TV. Shout out, Hawk TV. Thanks for taking our comments. Fun fact, Washington Commanders have not won the Super Bowl, nor have been to a Super Bowl since, KDot, you know the year? 1991. Question, how patient do you want fans to be before we have public episodes like Tyrese Gibson saying, what more do you want from me?
You never want to get to Tyrese's level.
You really don't.
And if anybody has never seen it, Tyrese...
I saw it.
Oh, hang on. Have you seen the audition tape for Django?
No, I haven't seen that.
Tyrese tried to be Django and Quentin Tarantino, and he put together an audition tape to send to him. If you can make it through that, you got my you got my kudos.
All right.
It's
noted.
It's rough.
Noted. Go ahead.
Although a couple scenes he was all right. Look, Washington's fan base does not. If we're asking, I went on a rant a little bit ago about karma, injustice, and this, that, and the other. Right? There shouldn't be a person in the world telling a Washington fan to be patient about fucking anything. That being said, you can use logic, right? There's a new ownership group. Dan Snyder was a terrible, terrible owner. We were never going to win anything with him. The closest we came to it was when Joe Gibbs came back, and he still left with a losing record in his return. There is an idea from a logical standpoint. You have to give this new ownership some time to institute their guys and to give it time to build the team the way they want to and to put together a contender. So I would say logically you should be patient. But from an emotional standpoint, I would never tell anybody with the way it's been over the last 30 years, fuck that.
I completely echo your sentiments. You do what you want with your patience. If you're impatient, go for it. If you're patient, more power to you. Yeah. How patient do you want fans to be? As patient as you want to be. That's the way I would answer that question. I will say I'm optimistic about the future. And I have been talking to fans saying that I am optimistic about the future because
I feel great about it.
We are 2 weeks away from Josh Harris and his people being able to actually choose their front office, coaching staff, etc. That is exciting. And just their presence alone makes this an attractive destination. And that is the first time in 30 years that's been the case. So, well, 20 years rather, that it's been the case. So I'm very, very excited for that. We go over to Blood Clot. Shout out Blood Clot. And also, I did reach out to Will. He thinks there's one. He thinks he has a large. I will double check, though, and just be sure. that we can get you one of these. Hopefully. Blood Clot writes, if we are the third pick in the draft, we cannot use that pick to draft a quarterback. That sort of mentality is dated. Teams that have a pick this high is because their entire roster is suffering. You need to establish the team before spending the largest amount of resources on a quarterback. We cannot follow teams like the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, the New England Patriots, and even the Chicago Bears that failed their highly drafted quarterbacks by throwing them into a meat grinder. Establish the front office, the front organization, recruit some young-minded coaches, and then draft to build the team around a quarterback. Blood Clot, I am here to tell you that we have to do it in that order, and that we can do it all in that order in one offseason. We can establish the front office, we can recruit some young-minded coaches, and then we can draft to build the team around a quarterback, but maybe use the second rounders, the third rounders to be able to do that stuff. Because here's another thing. It's been a while since we've hit on those. There is an entire draft. We consistently talk about the first round pick. What about all the other ones? We so rarely hit on those. This is an opportunity if we get the right front office to hit on those as well. KDot, your reaction.
I feel like me and you have for years argued at this point about the way to build a team. Probably.
Yes, we have.
So who wrote this comment?
This is Blood Clot.
Blood Clot. Sorry, Blood Clot. I passed that a little bit because I was looking something up. To help enforce our point, but we'll get there. I'm with you.
Our point being, Blood Clot and KDot.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, and Amit knows I'm with you. Like, there is an element of
it's called District Divided, buddy. Oh yeah.
I am a firm believer in the way to have in the sustained success is to build up your trenches and the rest of the team and have the quarterback be the final point, the final piece to the puzzle. Like, to me, that's always the best way to go about it. Unless you have somebody who, once again, no decision need to be made without a competent GM, scouts, and everybody making those decisions. If you have somebody in here that says, hey, Drake Maye is the guy, I believe in him 100,000%, you have to go get him, then do it. But if I'm the guy I'm choosing based on my limited knowledge right now, I wouldn't make that decision. I think that there are tons of other things that the team needs, and I am very much in the bridge quarterback to start your rookie. Even if we were to draft one of those guys in the top 3, I think everybody's heard me enough on this podcast to know I don't want to start that person for at least.
We're on the same page there. We'll get into it and after the pod as well. I wanted to also mention that because KDot sort of knows who he wants at pick 3. I know who I want at pick 3. If that holds, if it were to change, we'll talk about that in after the pod as well. But we'll get into that. So appreciate the comment there, Blood Clot. And once again, I will follow up and see if we can get you the hoodie. And then we go over to Matt Regan, former co-host of the show. Appreciate your comment as always, Matthew. At least you guys found out that Jacoby Brissett is the guy. Lion emoji, eyes emoji. KDot.
Jacoby Brissett is a guy that we know.
The man is a living troll.
Yeah,
Matt Regan, just don't bite into it. That's all I'm saying.
Although I am starting to feel bad about I only call Jacoby Brissett in my personal life Jacoby Brisket because I just think it's a better name.
Sure.
I am starting to feel guilty about calling him Jacoby Brisket.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you letting us know that. I will say this. If the Lions beat Dallas tomorrow, our chances of winning that final game go up quite a bit against Dallas. Because at that point, you would think Philly beats Arizona and Dallas is locked into the 5, nothing to play for. They maybe rest some guys, and it's going to be a battle against those rested guys. But I do think that there is an opportunity. So if you're interested in the draft position, I'm just saying, might be one of the few times you're okay with the Dallas win. That's all I'm going to say.
I can't remember when I first came to the pod and said we're not winning another game. It was after the Giants game. That has not changed.
Go over to Jess Anto. Shout out, Jess. This coaching staff is out of touch with their players. Rivera is incompetent and prideful. I've worked with guys like him before. They like having a professional title and respect, but refuse to acknowledge their own shortcomings. so they will pass blame onto others instead of taking accountability. This is why it eerily feels like the end of last season when they were bouncing between Heineke and Wentz. He has no clue what to do and should not have any input on offense. I don't think this has ruined Howell's career, but it's definitely negatively affecting it. Howell has some intangibles you cannot ignore: arm strength, toughness, extending play ability, intelligence, and work ethic. I think the problem occurred when they put him behind a dogshit offensive line and had him pass 50 times a game. So far, this comment is hitting the nail on the head because I think we are all in total agreement.
Yep.
He was on pace to be sacked more than any quarterback ever. So instead of putting in more blockers, running more, and using more slants, they repeatedly told him to get rid of the ball faster, find incompletions, and kept giving him 15-yard developing routes. He's a football nerd who is doing exactly what he is told by his coach. He's not playing his game, and it's fucking up the whole offense. He's not playing loose and doesn't have a full knowledge of playing in an NFL offense. If he had a touch of Heineke's knowledge and fuckitness, he'd be a destroyer. Heineke knew the rules in and out. Brissett is just an awesome dude. There are few people like him anymore, and it's a shame. He's selfless, intelligent, and dedicated. As far as we go from here, I wouldn't mind keeping both quarterbacks and drafting a project QB in the second or third round next season. I have a feeling once we get rid of this coaching staff and front office, that within itself, will improve whoever is currently on this team. P.S. St. Toast played better inside with his lanky ass. Appreciate the comment.
Yeah. There's not a lot that I would. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. The thing with the Sam Howell stuff over the course of the season was, it reminds me of Kansas City a lot. Kansas City and what it is they have kind of built into the offense that Eric Bieniemy was a part of was Patrick Mahomes playing off schedule, right? So like there is an element of playing off schedule that you have to have either Mahomes' just abilities, you got to have Lamar Jackson's abilities, you got to be able to be truly special in order to play off schedule and to do it successfully at a high rate for a long period of time. I think that Sam Howell was playing off schedule to a certain degree at certain points of the season. I think they have tried to limit that to some degree, but even over the course of the season, by he getting hit the way he was getting hit, he's now he doesn't know what he's seeing, and he's going so off schedule so early that it's just fucking everything up. So like you see in this Jets game how many fucking times he ran away from a clean pocket to try to make a play happen.
It conditions you. Yes.
Right. So like it's there, and this is where I go back to I do think, and I have hope that Sam Howell can come back from this, but I really do think if I'm looking at what Washington has done to some of the young quarterbacks over the course of the last, let's say 5 years, we are some of the worst ever at developing or helping young guys. You go back to Jay Gruden and what he did with Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, throwing him under the fucking bus. We sacrifice guys for nothing. For nothing. It's one thing to sacrifice if we're going to win. We sacrifice guys for a wasted year and potentially ruin their careers for nothing.
Amen to that. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one. We do sacrifice guys and we don't get any return from it other than ruining a career potentially. So we will see if Sam Howell can be saved. I believe he can. And I'm hopeful that we do. That being said, and we'll get into it after the pod, the person I want at pick 3, if we are pick 3, and it's more of it's a mix of want and predict. We'll get into that, but it is a QB. So we're going to go ahead and chat about that. This was District Divided, DC Sports podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I am Amit. That is KDot. If you enjoyed the episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do. And KDot,
share this shit.
Share this shit. We greatly appreciate you guys. A very happy new year to all of you. May 2024 bring everything you want and more. Maybe a quarterback, maybe a team, who knows? Or just something more personally fulfilling. Go for that. After the pod begins right now.
All right, you gonna or do we need a fucking drum roll? Or you're just gonna get to it. You sound.
No, I was actually gonna grab some coffee first, and then I.
Well, like you've been teasing this shit.
Yeah. So let me like go grab the coffee.
Like people watching, I've been getting teased via text messages, and he just stopped short. Oh, I know who I want. I'm like, okay,
I was grinding the tape. I was looking at the numbers,
watch me. Here's the thing.
everything.
You keep fucking with me. I'm gonna just say who my favorite player is, and I might step all over your thing and ruin this.
Okay,
So
one
get
moment.
to it, motherfucker.
Yeah. I just need to get some coffee, and then we'll get right to it. You say whatever you want to for the next 30 seconds.
Okay, got it. So you can't hear me. So I don't know where he's going with this, but I will tell you that my favorite quarterback in this draft is actually Jayden Daniels. I think that if you look at what he's dealt with over the course of his career, in college, starting at Arizona State and moving on to LSU, plus just a lot of the intangibles. So there's an intangible aspect of it that I'm fucking loving for him, and just from talent standpoint, I'm loving. And I'm hoping he falls, but I don't think he will. I think he'll rise.
I'm looking forward to hearing all that when I edit this thing.
Okay.
All right. So here's the deal. First off, there's a lot that goes into this, actually. First off, I do agree that I want Mike Macdonald to be our head coach. Done some reading on him. I think coming from a Harbaugh tree, I like the idea. We talk about the offensive-minded coaches, the trend, and the fear that if you end up getting a good offense, you could lose an offensive coordinator, for example. So like Houston maybe goes through that with CJ Stroud playing as well as he has, a top 3 pick, mind you. With Bobby Slowick, former guy that was over here.
Yep.
So maybe he has to learn a new offense again. There is an element of risk there, certainly. But I do think Mike Macdonald, from what I've read so far, I think would be a very, very good choice here, and is one person I would really like over here from a culture standpoint. I think it'd be fabulous. Who the GM is, we'll see.
I have that name too.
What's your name?
Joe Hortiz. Joe Hortiz. He's the director of player personnel for Baltimore right now. He's been with Baltimore for the last 25 years. He is what's his name? Who's the main guy?
Eugene
there,
Chen.
No,
That's our guy.
DaCosta.
Oh yeah, Eric DaCosta. Yeah,
he's one of the way the Baltimore has it. So this guy Hortiz, he was a scout for Baltimore for years, like I think damn near over a decade. And now he's one of the right-hand guys as far as making player personnel decisions and telling DaCosta, get this guy, get that guy. I'm sorry, Baltimore usually does a really good job unless it's wide receiver. And Zay Flowers is kind of fucking hit. So that's what might be over. He interviewed for the Giants job last year, but they gave it to Joe Schoen. And I think that was more about a culture fit with some of the guys that they were already looking at, they wanted coaching wise and stuff. And
they got Daboll. Yep.
Right. So, but if you're talking about, like, to me, the package deal would be, if you can know Hortiz is a dude that's scouted, is a dude that is usually one of the last lines to getting players in. You have Mike Macdonald, who got to be very happy with the guys that they had on that fucking defense. So there's a connection there. Plus, just 20-something years of working within that Ravens organization means, from a structural standpoint, you can kind of put your fingerprints and change the way that Washington's culture is set. I just think that it is a match made in heaven. If they have kids and in families, they don't have to completely uproot them from the area.
Yep.
I just think you back up the fucking Brinks truck and you go get these two guys and do whatever it takes.
And we have that connection with Eugene Chen. That's why I'd mentioned him.
There's
as
also
well.
right in the
there is a lot. There is a lot to like about this idea. Okay, so we're on the same page right now. As of right now, we'll get more information on people as we continue, and we'll, learn more about other candidates and stuff like that. But as of right now, Joe Hortiz, I like the idea based on what you said. And Mike Macdonald, I really like, because he's done all sorts of stuff with the Ravens. He started off as an intern, then he was a defensive assistant, then he was a DB's coach, then he was a linebackers coach. Then he goes to Michigan, works with Jim Harbaugh, top 10 defense nationally over there. He only does it for 1 year, comes back as the Baltimore defensive coordinator, and look what he's doing now. I mean, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. He's 36. Okay? Like, I don't know.
And the thing is, it's different than the Brandon Staley thing to a certain degree. Like Brandon Staley, yes, Brandon Staley has a similar trajectory and a one-hit wonder sort of thing with the LA Rams defense coordinator. But then you look at the guys that they had on that defense, slightly different than what they had in Baltimore in the sense of developing guys. Yeah. And the other thing with Baltimore is just the mentality of the players. I live here in Baltimore, and you hear the way guys talk about Mike Macdonald, they're willing to oust John Harbaugh for this dude if it comes down to it.
Fans love him. I've been seeing fan videos of them meeting Mike Macdonald, and they are like, hey, you do not let him leave. I know where you live. Like,
Right.
do not.
It's huge. And the idea of if you can see, like you saw that 49ers game, because I don't think a lot of people watch Ravens games.
No, they don't. And we get the luxury of being able to do so because it's
Right.
local. So we always get them on CBS here.
Which is why I think Lamar Jackson is constantly getting overlooked, because I don't think enough people aren't watching Ravens games. So like when you get to see the Ravens play and you see that defense swarming, you see the way they communicate on the sideline. If there's one thing that we've been craving in Washington is that culture shift in the sense of guys having fun and guys being dogs, right? This is a dude that breathes so much. Can you imagine that sort of mentality with a Deron Payne and a Jonathan Allen and even an Emmanuel Forbes? Like the dudes that want to have swag in what it is they're doing and feel excited about it. We need that. We don't need a fucking dull suit.
So that brings me to what I want to do at pick 3, so I am of the belief that this new front office and coaching staff would want their own guy. That's my belief. So at pick 3, I've been saying I want a left tackle this whole time. If we end up falling out of top 3, still want a left tackle. If you get to top 3, and this is where Blood Clot, you and I will disagree, I do want the opportunity to be able to get a guy that I think can change everything. And KDot, I'm on your side that I don't want him to start day one. I want the bridge quarterback. I want this player to get the opportunity to learn, to grow, etc. So I was looking at the numbers of the top 3 quarterbacks, right? And I think they're pretty well known at this point. You have Caleb Williams, you have Drake Maye, you have Jayden Daniels. KDot, I, as of right now, do not want Caleb Williams. He has so much time in that USC pocket to be able to do whatever he wants, to play a lot of backyard football. And then when you look at his numbers, they're actually not as overwhelmingly amazing as people make them out to be. He also is, if you care about height, and some people talk about Sam Howell being 6'1", Caleb Williams is also 6'1", believe it or not. So there's, to me, some questions there. I'm not questioning the talent. You see some of those throws and you're like, holy hell. Like, it is amazing. But this comparison to Patrick Mahomes, I think the media does a great job of anointing certain people, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. I'm currently out on Caleb Williams. That could change, but as of right now, out on him. I would rather have Drake Maye, who, to me, did not really stand out that much on film. I thought that his ball placement was but if you look at the average yards given up by an ACC defense passing, Drake Maye beats them every single time. So if a team gives up 168, he throws for 300. If they give up 220, he throws for 340. So he consistently overachieves relative to the defense and what they're doing. Could that mean that all other ACC QBs stink? That is possible. And so that needs to be considered when you think about that stuff. KDot, Jayden Daniels is unreal. He is legitimately unreal. I watched this guy, his ball, forget the rushing, which, by the way, then I saw those stats and was like, holy fuck. And then you see him run and you're like, this is ridiculous. He's in the SEC. He's not an Alabama QB. So he's going against Alabama. He's going against these other SEC defenses. His ball placement is unbelievable. I mean, and he's going through progressions. KDot, I was fucking wowed by this guy. And I'm continuing to watch more LSU games. What he's doing, I haven't seen. He's 6'4", so if you're worried about the height, don't be. He's 215. Yes, that's why he needs the year. Hopefully bulk up a little bit. Hopefully be able to learn to slide. I don't want an RG3 2.0. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. People are going to look at that. Please take the blinders off, guys. Take an opportunity to see them for yourselves. Jayden Daniels is next level, bud. And when I look at what Baltimore's built, right? Defensively, having Lamar Jackson, I'm not calling him Lamar Jackson, but having a guy that can extend the play. This is your guy. And he's not even looking to run first. This is your guy. So I am fully on the Jayden Daniels train if we stay at pick 3. And I think there is actually a slight chance we beat Dallas next week. But if we stay at pick 3, please, this feels like one of the biggest home runs for me that we could have. Sit him for a year. Let Jacoby or Sam, I don't care. That's my pick.
So welcome to where I've been the last 6 months. Jayden
Before
Daniels
the Heisman Trophy.
before the Heisman
the
Trophy.
start, his ball placement, man. That's the thing that wowed me more than anything.
So it's more than that for me. And when you went up to get coffee, I let the audience know that that's where I was going with Jayden Daniels. Was my guy.
Okay.
So like, to me, it's certain intangible stuff. I like to see my guys overcome stuff. So like the idea of him starting at Arizona State and then finishing up here at LSU after the shit that goes down like Arizona State, like to me, there's intangible aspects of stuff that I like. It's why I'm still a huge Baker Mayfield guy, and I still think I'm right about that. Is that there are certain dudes that I want to see face adversity and not have things handed to them, and seeing how it is that they fight through and still come out on top. The reason I don't like us talking about Jayden Daniels, if I'm being completely honest, is I do think the more that people start getting into the season ends and they start looking at stuff, I do think that there's a legitimate chance that Jayden Daniels ends up being the first quarterback off the board.
I think there is a shot. I think there is a legitimate shot, especially when you consider these NFL scouts care about height, for example. And you look at, by the way, you look at Caleb Williams' numbers. I was talking about Drake Maye consistently exceeding whatever the defense gives up. That's not true with Caleb Williams. When he played against Notre Dame, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Okay, so like there are this whole anointing of Caleb Williams.
Well, all right, so
he has all the physical.
He's a great quarterback.
Not all the physical tools because of the height, but he can make some spectacular plays. I recognize that, but also you look at that pocket and. I'm not even going to go. I don't put stock in Miller Moss going for 6 touchdowns, whatever. He can just be his own really good player. But it didn't help. Like, it really is one of those things where I think when watching Caleb Williams, was more like, man, this USC offensive line is ridiculous. That's what I was picking up on.
Yeah, there's all right. My reasoning for liking Jayden Daniels more than Caleb is, number one, because of what I saw on the field. Number 2 is the intangible aspect. But number 3 is something that I think is overlooked a bit, and I understand it may be a controversial thing to say. I am sort of out on drafting the hometown kid. There is an element of...
We've had rough experiences with it.
The last 2 times didn't go great, right? So like
you got Jonathan Allen, he's a Virginia kid.
Doesn't count. You cross the river, it doesn't count.
Okay.
It's different. It's different thing.
Good.
Yeah, it's different. DC or Maryland.
Okay.
And then
DC
some parts of Maryland.
Caleb Williams did play at Gonzaga over here, high school in DC.
Right. So like, and even if you go as far as Baltimore, we don't count as your hometown kid. It's a different thing.
Okay.
It's basically DC and PG County. So like, there were things about, like, you hear. I don't love to give him a lot of credence, but you do hear certain things about when Dwayne Haskins got drafted, about certain people that are around, and there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of people that, and then Chase Young was sort of the same thing. You start hearing these rumblings about certain things that go on around his sphere. I just think for Caleb Williams' own sake, it's nice to get the fuck away from home. So like, even if I still think, if I had to look at everything, who do I think is the most talented quarterback in the draft? I'm going Caleb Williams. I don't think people are wrong there. I just think that here in our particular situation, I don't want to roll those bones again to get to that. I just don't want to.
I was attempting to not fall into that narrative of like hometown kid and stuff like that. I would be lying if I said that didn't play in my head a little bit. Each player is their own. Each player's got their own mental makeup and stuff like that. So in the case of Dwayne and Chase, didn't work out. I'm not going to let that necessarily preclude me from taking Caleb Williams, but it does factor.
That's why I'm saying it's a factor. And I'm putting it number 3 or 4, right? But it's like, if you've been a fan base that has experienced what we've experienced, I'm adverse to doing the risky thing sometimes. Or look, the idea of the hometown kid coming and like take you to the promised land it's a great story. It's a really good story, but it rarely happens where it turns out all that great. So like, I will say this from Caleb Williams from an intangible standpoint is, with the NIL, these dudes are having to deal with stuff in college now that they never had to deal with
that
previously.
is true.
So there is more preparedness for the distractions and other shit. And look, I've seen Caleb Williams hanging around with fucking David Dobrik, off the USC campus, driving fucking expensive cars, doing crazy shit, whatever. I don't think that the lights will be too bright or anything for him. I just there's every draft I have one quarterback I kind of fall in love with. It was Will Levis. To the point where I liked him more than CJ Stroud. Am I wrong on that? Fuck yeah. I was very wrong about
that
CJ
happens.
Stroud.
So scouts get paid thousands, millions, whatever it may be, and they get it wrong all the time.
But see, that's the thing overall is that if I find out that Eric Bieniemy's coming back, I don't want any of these guys. If I find out that like they hire some, like I need to believe in the coaching staff to be able to take, because I am a believer that like I love Kyle Hamilton. You know I love Kyle Hamilton.
You know I do too. We talked about him ad nauseum entering that draft last year.
Would not be sniffing all pro here.
No.
So
no,
like
we'd be wondering if he was any good over here.
So like there are so many things that so like if I'm looking at what do I want in a vacuum right now with not knowing who our GM is, not knowing who the head coach is, not knowing who the offense coordinator is, my answer honestly is I want us to trade back. Like
but so and here's what I would say is I don't even care if we trade back because we're conditioned to getting it wrong anyway. From prior, right? So like this is with the assumption we get Joe Hortiz and McDonald. We've already got some shots at it with those picks.
So if we're doing that, let's say that we're going with this. We don't know who the offense coordinator is just yet.
We don't.
But we know who our head coach is, Mike McDaniel. We know who our GM is, Joe Hortiz. All that said, my favorite, if he's there on the board, I don't think you can pass him over, is Marvin Harrison Jr. It's a generational talent.
Just your surefire coach proof.
He's the closest to coach proof you're going to find, right? And yes, I know that's a luxury as a motherfucker with Jahan Dotson and everybody we have on there, but add another one to it. I don't give a fuck. Like, you make it easy as shit for the quarterback. Right.
I understand what you're saying.
But then if he's not there, which I don't think he makes it past pick 2, then my top guy is Joe Alt. And I've said this here on the pod, is that I don't think he's as flashy as the Penn State tackle. Olafashanu. I don't think he screams off physically the way that Olafashanu does. But I think Joe Alt is a plug-in 10-year minimum starter at tackle.
That's the thing.
And you don't have to worry about it.
So there are 2 to 3 left tackles that there is a thought like that this year.
I think he's a cut above.
That's not okay. Okay.
That's where I'm going. I think he's a cut above.
And he could well be.
He's smart as shit. When you look at, like, I've been watching certain offensive linemen break down the technique. When you look at him and you see how he adapts to coaching and how he's implementing feedback and growing as a player, I look at Joe Thomas comps.
Wow.
And like, if I can get that, then yes, I want it. Like I want it badly. Like
let me say this. If he's adaptable to coaching, I don't want him because our coaching is so bad. I would take a guy that's an idiot that just does his own thing and goes, you know what? I'm like, cool, because he's on his own island. He's cooking.
Mike McDonald and Joe Hortiz, right? Like I'm going with. They have competent guy, and I'm guessing if they hire this guy, then they're going to hire the right offense coordinator. That's the logic we're going to go with.
Yeah.
And the idea would be, who can I have to plug in adaptive to coaching styles, not too much of one type of player and this type of player, and can be here to be the thing that I miss in Washington. Once again, we talk about wasting careers, right? There was a period of time throughout majority of our lives that left tackle was not even something you had to consider.
We had Chris Samuels. We had Trent Williams.
Fucking Trent Williams. And to me speaks more about who Washington is as a franchise than anything else. Left tackle shouldn't be a question here.
Yeah, and it hasn't been. And now we know, because we're like, man, we really had it made at that position. And now yeah. I agree with you. And that's how it should be. And with a guy like Joe Alt, assuming all this stuff is true and he does end up being that home run pick, it would be the case once again. I do, and this is where I disagree with Blood Clot. Like, first off, I would few places my brain want to go. Yes, I also want to build the team around, and make sure that it's ready for the QB to be dropped. That's part of my thinking when I say let the guy sit a year, is it gives the opportunity for the other draft picks, the other free agents to be able to mesh into a system together and have some coherence entering year 2 of a new regime. But the regime has picked their QB and he's just waiting there while everything else gels. And then you get another draft class that is also able to come in and help in that second year, allowing that quarterback who is now sat a year to be able to be plugged in, right, with the necessary talent to be able to take you not just to one, but many. And I think that there are many QBs, like, 7th round pick, there's Brock Purdy, 6th round Brady, best of all time. Like, I get it. It's not as frequent as you think. And I do think that you need an elite guy to be able to have the potential to win multiple. Otherwise, I just don't. That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
we can win one, but I want to win multiple. I want to be set up for that. And that QB, I think it's more likely you pick in the top 3 or something like that. Like Peyton Manning always gave them the chance at multiple, for example, because that's who he was. And his rookie year, they sucked. And he set the NFL record for interceptions by a rookie. But then you look at it, like, it goes both ways.
Yes. I don't think you're wrong philosophically. I disagree. You know how I want to go about it. The only thing I push back on at all is that I don't think you get the guy until you know everything else is in place. So like I'm not letting someone
But what
sit
about
on the
CJ? Just the most recent example.
There are always exceptions to the rule. Once again,
Joe Burrow would be one as well.
And CJ got hurt and they haven't won anything. So like I'm not calling anything just yet, right? So like, but the idea to me is, and I'm saying I still think first round quarterback talent. I just don't think you need to get it at the top echelon of that.
You could make the case they could have sat him for a year.
Yeah, like 100%. I
Lamar sat for 11 games or something like that. Mahomes sat an entire season. There is proven. Rodgers, Love has had flashes. We'll see how that turns out.
But majority of the teams you're naming, and we're naming those guys, the system was built. So like in Kansas City, when they go and draft Patrick Mahomes,
yes,
it's already done. Like it's built. The Alex Smith is already challenging for AFC championships. We then draft a guy because we know, all right, this is the dude that if we develop will take us over the edge. That's who I want us to be, is like right now there are entirely way too many question marks about what it is.
To counter that,
yeah,
you have said time and time again this team has talent and that it's been a coaching issue. So then would we not be closer than you think?
No, wait.
Okay.
System. So like the system needs to be in place. We have talent, but what was this talent supposed to be? This talent was supposed to be when you pick up the guys that they picked up with the offensive line, you're supposed to be a run first team. They instituted a system that's not that. Now we look into the next season. Chris Rodriguez looks pretty decent. I'm not over the moon about him like everybody else seems to be, but like he seems quality enough.
He's a plug and play guy. It's just the reality of the situation. You see it with running backs everywhere now.
Brian Robinson's also coming off an injury. Antonio Gibson is probably not going to be here next year.
He won't be.
Right. So like, all right, what does that mean if you draft a Joe Alt or what does free agency look like on the offensive line? Can you be? It
doesn't look good. Team? I will tell you that right now. It does not look good, and I recognize that.
So, can you be a run first team with or are you even going to want to be a run first team? I don't want to be trying to make that determination with the quarterback wasting away. I want the system in place to then have a guy come in and learn as best as he can, and then have our offense coordinator say the most we need to do is tweak it a bit for the guy that we have behind center, and that's it. Like that's where I'm at. Is that you build the rest of it out before you get to that point. And if there are more teams that I'm much more of I look at the Baltimore Ravens as a team to model after. And the Ravens, you build the team, you build the system,
But a build also implies you can hit on picks. We've never had that. And there's more than just your first rounder. And so 100%. That's also where I'm coming from.
But I do think this team is talented in a lot of different ways. I think that getting rid of a Montez Sweat and Chase Young leaves question marks again. James Smith-Williams had a fairly decent game against the Jets. I'm not looking at him or anybody else on that defensive line other than 2 interior guys as these are surefire, don't worry about it players. Right. So like linebacker, back to the fucking drawing board. Defensive back, I don't know if the fact that, like, I remember when I was in high school, ninth grade, I had French. I spent 3 years doing French at Hardy, my middle school. And then I had a teacher in freshman year. I had a teacher my freshman year of French where we all regressed because she didn't know what the fuck to teach. So like we regressed like a motherfucker. I don't know if our secondary, because they have a fucking, they didn't have basically a defensive back coach. How much damage did he do?
I mean, talk about missing Chris Harris. Oof.
So like,
yeah.
So I don't know what's there. I think that there's some talent there. I saw St. Juice look decent before this year. I saw, but what Emmanuel Forbes hasn't shown anything yet. Like what he's clearly talented.
We have had guys consistently set up to fail. I think where I'm coming from is that first and foremost, you need to, like you said, have a system. But I think that's the implication when you bring in a front office and new coach, right? The implication is that system is being put in place now, right?
Let me hop in real quick. I would say this. To me, there's a difference between trying to draft an elite quarterback that'll drag your ass to the game, to the dance, regardless of whatever else is happening, compared to building out the long, slow process of a team and getting a guy who might not be elite, but will keep you in the conversation. I think those are the two different ways to skin the cat. I think it's a lot harder to hit the elite guy.
It is.
And I don't want to spend time on that as much as I want to spend time doing the other thing.
Okay.
I want to be the Giants who won 2 Super Bowls against the fucking Patriots. Eli's not elite. I know they picked him up, but he was never elite, right? It's like Eli looks much more like second round.
But they did spend the capital to do it.
Spend the capital, 100%.
Right?
But the idea would be Joe Flacco. Like I need the guy like Peyton Manning. I look at Peyton Manning's Indianapolis years as a fucking travesty. And the reason I think it's a travesty is you have a guy who's arguably the top 2, top 3 best things we've ever seen in the quarterback position. You got one. Mm-hmm. One. The Green Bay Packers. 40 years, 30 plus years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. 2. Like, to me, it's you build the guys in the system and then you get a quarterback that you take you the promised land, or you luck into something like a Tom Brady, which is you didn't spend the draft capital and you got something that was elite.
Right.
Super elite.
So I don't know if this is necessarily an exception, KDot, but like, well, I suppose it would be. I suppose Tom Brady would be in every sense an exception.
Yeah.
But he won so damn much. And when it wasn't him, it was Manning. When it wasn't him, it's Mahomes. Like ultimately, when it boils down to, you even look at San Francisco, when they go, it's with Jimmy Garoppolo. And it finally comes down to they have everything. And then they go against one of these freaks.
But every single one of the guys you're naming, right, are like every single one of the dudes you're naming have elite built teams.
Yes.
They'll always be in the conversation. When the Patriots lost Tom Brady, Matt Castle put up double-digit wins.
Like, yeah. No, I get that. I get that. And so, yeah, I would say Kansas City, like their defense this year is magnificent. And now they're really paying for not having receivers. So there is a degree of talent that they actually do. They're learning they do need. Or Kelsey being maybe over the hill at this point. We don't know. He's older now. But you can certainly get to Super Bowls and even win with a Joe Flacco. For example, it happened. Jared Goff takes the Rams to the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford wins a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They have the pieces in place and they really, so I understand your point. I think fully, honestly. I just know that to be consistently, not just in the conversation, but a favorite and contender every year, I want to be able to, I'm willing to take that swing on the guy while we do continue to build the roster around him. I would love to have the roster built out, but maybe I am impatient in that respect. And I want to see, it could be. But if I do see a guy like this, and I sincerely feel I haven't, so maybe more and more will be like this, sort of like the wide receivers, like more and more getting better and better with their footwork and stuff like that. Maybe this is a trend with the QBs. And in 2027, Jayden Daniels looks bang average compared to what a prospect looks like there. I don't know about all that. I'm just saying to date, this guy, what wowed me the most was his pocket presence, was his going through reads. He does have arm strength. I don't know where that's coming from, that people think he doesn't. And his ball placement's incredible. And then I saw him run. So it was like I fell in love with the passing elements and then saw him run and was like, oh, holy cow.
Right.
Like that's just icing on the cake territory here. Like
Yep.
that's crazy. So that's where I'm coming from. But I do understand what you're saying. And
Yeah,
once again,
love
I've
to see
been
him.
pro left tackle this whole time until I saw Jayden.
I'm
It
pro
was
the
one of
best-
those things.
I'm pro talent, but the thing
Yeah.
with quarterback is that like if you even go and get the elite guy too early, your runway is so much shorter because there's like an element of there's gonna come time to pay your
Right,
elite
because you have to pay
guy.
him. So Justin Herbert, for example, I'm willing to be as balanced as possible about this whole thing. You know, I am.
Well, to me, but that's the thing. I'm not. I don't think it can be. I like to me. It's like the idea that I go off is like the final piece of the puzzle should be the quarterback, and what you're hoping for is the quarterback that is elite. You're still hoping to get elite, right?
Mhm.
But you're hoping to get elite in a situation that makes it the easiest possible to create a situation and a dynamic for this guy to be elite and not elite for a year. Then your shit gets rocked and you can't do
Fair
it.
enough. So I'll tell you what I'll do as we run up on this hard stop. I will take the time and self-reflect and see if I'm truly being impatient and we all fall in love with somebody in the draft. It happens.
Yeah.
But if I'm being impatient and going, you know what? After seeing it from a longer term view, does make sense, even with this pick, to go with the left tackle that I originally wanted before seeing Jayden Daniels play, for
Think
example.
about our
Like,
history, man. We are Commanders fans. We're Washington
Yeah.
fans. What does that mean? When he had our most success with Joe Gibbs, and guess what Joe Gibbs did? 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, none of which are Hall of Famers.
that is our history.
Let's get there. That's our history. That's who we are.
But then to also, yes, you're right. That is who we are. It would be incredible. I just also feel that the game has changed some. And that's where you and I also talk about, like, I think you view me more as the trendy guy and you're the more stable. So like we could have that conversation as well,
100%.
obviously. But hey, I was willing to overlook the offensive one to be like, yeah, I love Mike McDonald. I've been
I
reading
just
about
love
him.
that you
Like,
came down on Jayden Daniels. I'm so glad we're on the same page with Jayden Daniels. He's the guy that stands out.
electric, man. And now you put him in a team that's ready. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
Do you imagine? Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah, that's whoosh.
Like, that's what you want. You want, like, if you have the off year or like the quarterback, like you have that year that like injuries just plague you and you luck into a top 3 pick or top 5 pick because injuries, but you have the core tenets of a team.
The way
then
you
you
feel about Atlanta, like if Atlanta moved in and got, do you feel that roster's ready? You love Atlanta.
I love I love certain aspects of Atlanta. They still need to do more fundamental building. But
Also,
they
their
have a
coaching
lot of
staff
fun.
just isn't it.
The coaching staff is not it at all. But they have so many great skills position guys.
Of course,
They need to
Drake,
work on
Kyle, Bijan. Like,
if they
yeah.
work on more fundamentals and get coaching right, yeah, that's a team that should be scary. I don't know of anybody with that much talent that young in the NFL.
Yeah.
At all different
That's
sorts
fair.
of positions.
That's fair. All right. Well, we got to go. Happy New Year's, guys. Really appreciate you. And we will see you on the other side in 2024. Take it easy.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.